So how's it going, guys? I'm here to talk about Tessa Blanchard winning the Impact World title. So this was something I mentioned a few times, in my reviews of AEW. I said at least they're not doing the Tessa Blanchard thing. At least they're, not gonna, consider putting a title on her. And I'm gonna tell you something. The minute I checked out the episodes of Impact, where she was beating Glenn Gilberti, Disco Inferno, I already knew the way how this was gonna go. And then you go on, and then you have the match with Brian Cage, and when she beat Brian Cage, I was like, you've got this massive bodybuilder guy, like the prototype for a world champion, for like a big star, and you have this guy eat a pin to Tessa Blanchard, and I'm like, and everyone was saying, oh, he kicked out right after she pinned him for three. Like, who cares at that point? The deed is done. The fact that she even got him in that prone position, it says a lot about the company. The fact that they would even book a scenario like that, to write that into the script, the fact that you'd have a girl like this, it doesn't matter if her dad was one of the four horsemen. We're talking about a woman. And this is not even a girl the size of China. She's not the size of Joni Lawler. She's not anywhere as big as that. Quite frankly, she's not even as tough as, like, say, Jacqueline or Ivory or, Jazz, like some of these old school divas, women's wrestlers. So, or Medusa. Medusa could, like, take this girl and wring her neck. I'm sorry to say, but if you're saying that Tessa Blanchard's one of the toughest female wrestlers of all time, you're not really thinking straight. You're not really looking at the past. It's a lot of hype surrounding her. And so, the way how they see it is if they feed her enough wins over male wrestlers that, we're going to be like, okay, she looks like she's deserving. The thing is, what people have to understand here is that we're talking about a fake sport. Tessa Blanchard is being portrayed to be a dominant female. The only problem is that when you apply this to real life, and, okay, so Sami Callihan, even that guy, you can't even see Tessa really getting a win over someone like this guy. Like, can you really believe that she would be able to pin this guy's shoulders to the mat? And then you bring someone like Brian Cage into the mix, who she's already beating this guy, which is even more impressive than beating the actual world champion, which is Sami Callihan. So at that point, you've already written it off as like she's going to win, because it would look ridiculous, her being able to beat Brian Cage. Also, that kind of ruined the match altogether, because it was inevitable. Obviously, if she could beat a bodybuilder the size of Brian Cage, obviously she'd be able to wipe the floor with a Sami Callihan. And what was so ironic about the way how this match laid out and some of the moves that were in there, so I didn't watch the whole match. I don't have time for that. But I watched some highlights so I could talk about it here. And you're telling me that she actually hit two Canadian destroyers in this match? First of all, you've got two super fake looking Canadian destroyers. You've got one running Canadian destroyer. Then you've got like 1 second off the second rope flying Canadian destroyer, where she like jumps at him and somehow spins around, and I talked about this during my Dynamite review over the weekend. I said, this is ridiculous. They've got to stop doing these Canadian destroyers. It was one thing when Petey Williams brought the move out in like 2004. The move looked impressive. I still even remember back then when it was message boards, and I used to go around and talk about wrestling on message boards pre-YouTube. People even said the move looked hella fake. They were saying, like, how could anyone get someone to be in that position. It obviously has more to do with the person taking the move than the person doing the move, and that's true. But this was before all these different indie moves started infiltrating every single square inch of wrestling, and before it became tiresome and stale and just, horrible to look at. This predates all that stuff. So it was still new, it was still fresh, it was still something exciting to look at. But now you got Tessa Blanchard doing two moves to another male wrestler. And so, I'm here watching this and I'm saying to myself, this looks absolutely ridiculous. And I get it. This is supposed to be the women empowerment stuff. There's, this is being talked about in the media. You could talk about, all the different female movements out there and the feminism movement. And, I don't want to get into all that garbage, but that is what it's all related to. And, you see the WWE was like pressured into it. And can't they take any hints from the WWE movement that like the fans are all for it, just like they were with Cringy Lynch, and now they don't even care about the female wrestlers? They were done with that movement to give the hashtag Give Divas a Chance thing the moment that WWE gave into it. Every couple of months there's, some hot act that like the smarks cling on to, and then they just abandon them altogether, because that's what happens when you give in to this fan base. So it's like, why are they giving into this fan base? If they've observed WWE's numbers, or they observed Dynamite's numbers, they would see that there's really not a lot of money to be made in female wrestling. Not a lot of females are really into this. So why would they get into, a market here? Why would they, kind of put themselves in the corner here, push themselves all the way in the corner in a spot like this where you've given your world championship to Tessa? And I mean, you can make the argument, you could say like, they're irrelevant anyway. Why are you even talking about it? Because, all the wrestling pages on YouTube are talking about this. All the dirt sheets were talking about it. And of course, most people, like What Culture, are forced into supporting it because, hey, we don't want to be looked at as being, chauvinistic, that we're like being anti, feminism. So we have to support Tessa as being the champion. I'm sorry. It's like, the idea of Tessa Blanchard, like, first of all, let's think about something for a minute. Why is this acceptable? Because, back then, back in the day, if you had Medusa pinning Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels or pinning Diesel, no one would go for this. So, like, why is it okay now? But like back then, it was, it was A-okay. Like, it would have never been acceptable in any period, because you just have to go by it. I know no one likes to hear that, oh, men are stronger than women. I get it. It doesn't sound polite. But, like, if we're really looking at this from a realistic standpoint, I mean, honestly, if you are sitting there saying to yourselves, I could buy Tessa Blanchard pinning a guy that looks like Brian Cage, you're out of your mind. Or more yet, you're just not being honest with yourself. It looks ridiculous. And, how does this product really expect to, like, dig themselves out of their own grave that they've done? Once in a while, they've been hitting on some genius stuff. Impact was the place to see all the, the broken Matt Hardy stuff. The Glenn Gilberti stuff was also very entertaining. They're working with a really low budget, not a lot of support. The management is very shaky over there. So they're doing what they can. I understand that. So they're going to make a lot of desperate decisions. And I get it. It is good that they try experimental things, like that. They're trying to put a world title on a woman, but it's just it's not going to work. It really isn't. I mean, even leading up to Tessa Blanchard winning the title, it didn't really improve their ratings or anything. So, I'm expecting that people are going to expect that the next rating for Impact next week is going to be like a lot higher than normal. I wouldn't really expect that. I just, I don't see how you could really support something like this. I get it. If you're in Tessa's position, you're not going to turn something down like this because they're never going to offer it to anybody else in any other company. I don't even think that Tony Khan or the Young Bucks or Cody Rhodes would even offer this to anybody in their women's division over in AEW. I don't think they would be so foolish to make a decision like that. Having Jericho drop a title to Rio or Nyla Rose or someone like that. No, it would never happen. Could you imagine Chris Statlander getting getting the pin on Chris Jericho or something like that? No, you couldn't imagine it, because even a company, like Dynamite that so desperately caters to the fans, I think at least has the common sense to know that something like that just wouldn't work. But sadly, Impact, them being off the radar like they are. I mean, this is putting them on the radar. It's getting them talked about in the dirt sheets. It's getting people like Meltzer and the rest of the crew to talk about them. So I see why they would do something like this, but in the end, it just really looks foolish. When you really sit back, it's like, it's a publicity stunt. You'd have to be foolish not to realize that. They want to do this like, oh, we've got the balls to give the world title to a woman, when WWE didn't have the balls to give it to Cringy Lynch or Ronda Rousey. But, it's a publicity stunt where there's really no chance of any publicity, because it's going to be very limited. Like, is the dirt sheets, is that in wrestling podcasts, is that worth the publicity? If WWE were to do it, yeah, they would probably get, it talked about on ESPN. Their reach is a lot further. Impact has to realize that their ship has sailed. The days of TNA are long gone, and that they're not going to be talked about in the media. They're not going to be talked about on ESPN. ESPN probably doesn't even know they exist. So this is a waste on their part. Putting so much time and effort, I'm sure it's making Tessa Blanchard happy. Like I said, kudos to her. She's earning a bigger paycheck. She feels more self-worth. That's good for her. I don't hate on Tessa Blanchard. I have no reason to do so. But, this is all on Impact and the management. If you're making a decision like this, you're not playing with a full deck. You're a few fries short of a Happy Meal. You could use every single cliche to show that you're not, using all of your brain power. All right, so let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post on my new videos. And guys, thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.